goal is really to share with you this process that I came up with, this sort of, learning to deal with my own anger, learning to, yeah, just peel apart what happens to me in my nervous system and what happens to us as humans, and in particular men, and how we can work with that, and actually the opportunity in that. And then at the end, I'm going to share with you a few details on a men's group that's coming up, which you'll be invited to join. Um, so here we go. So just a few housekeeping things. Just go ahead, and if you don't mind, just like set the phone to the side and just try to devote as much of your attention as you can to this. I'm going to send out the replay, so there's really no need to take notes. If you want, you're welcome to. And then all of these, we're going to go over all these items, and then we'll have time for Q&A, as well as time for me to tell you about this group that's going to be starting up in September. So why are we here? So, you're a man or male identified human, and you want to move with confidence more through the world. Basically, it's like, I have to move this off the side because I can't read it. We want to be able to move through the world without getting caught in our own self-criticism, our own thinking, our own loops of frustration and resentment, and especially holding ourselves to other people's standards and expectations about how we're supposed to show up, how anger is supposed to look, what's okay, what's not okay. We just want to be able to be more free and, frankly, feel less stuck emotionally, is my guess. And I'm wondering if you can relate to this. You get frustrated by what someone else does or says, something that happens to you, and then you go to try to clearly communicate or set a boundary, but you end up getting really angry, and it seems to make things worse. On the converse, if you decide to hold it in and kind of bite your lip, you only end up getting angry and angry because you feel like you can't let it go because it hasn't been cleaned. And so you hold on to it, sort of ruminating about what to do, and it really doesn't help, right? And so now you're caught, right? If you express your anger, you risk damaging the relationship, and you sort of don't necessarily feel like it cleans it up. But if you hold it in, then you become angry and depressed and bitter, and there's kind of, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, right? And I call this the emotional straitjacket that men are in. We either hold it in or we let it out, and it doesn't often seem to be a clear way. People will say, well, don't do either one, do the third thing. But what is the third thing, and how does that look? I'm going to talk about that. The first thing we have to realize is, it's not our fault a lot of times that this is the situation we find ourselves in. I mean, look at the factors that contribute to being in a challenging situation. We were told, boys don't cry, get up, rub some dirt on it, you're fine, you're okay. We weren't even taught anything about emotions anyway. For some men, and for a lot of men, it's even difficult to identify. Am I angry? Am I anxious? Am I upset? What's happening here? It's often socially unacceptable to even express our anger, right? A lot of the times we're just not allowed to do that. If we start to try to express our anger, the message that comes back is that's inappropriate, that's too much, and so on. And people will say, oh, we want to know what you feel, we want to know how you're feeling. But once we sort of let it out, a lot of times it can feel like, whoa, that's a little bit too much. That's a little bit, I wasn't really needing all that. And so we wind up there's got to be a way to get us some more support in this department, right? So here's a solution. I mean, it's really not that complicated. We need to recognize that our anger is often not about what's happening to us, but rather what's happening inside us, meaning that a lot of times we're getting angry for something that happened in the past, and it reminds us, what's happening in the present reminds us of something that happened once before, and we're responding to the sort of thing that's happening, but then that thing seems to happen again and again. So do you ever get angry about the same similar situations over and over again, or angry in general over and over again, right? So that's the first thing you have to recognize. Then we have to learn two skills. One, we have to learn to pause when we're agitated and figure out why we're angry, what it is we're angry about. And then we have to learn how to move that energy through the body, right? Anger is, in a way, similar to trauma in the sense that it is stored in the body, that energy is stored in the body. And so lastly, anger will sort of join with anxiety and work to speed us up and have us feeling like we have to deal with this thing right now, right? we're in trouble, someone we care about's in trouble, a value that we hold is under threat. And actually, because we're in that heightened space, we need to learn how to slow things down. Um, and what I say about this is, if you want to create a life of meaning and purpose, and passion, you're going to have to learn to master your relationship to anger. And that's because if we sort of stay impotent and at the mercy of our anger, we're kind of ineffective. We're wasting energy on the wrong stuff. We're bird dogging and going and putting out fires that don't really concern us. And the worst part is we're perpetuating this unconscious belief that we can't have what we want, right? That we're a victim of the world and that no one actually will respect our needs, and that we're actually fundamentally not in charge of our life. That's what our sort of body learns from having the experience of being angry about whatever is occurring to us. Okay. This is not to say that anger is bad, but we have to learn how to work with anger and use it effectively rather than letting it take over. Okay. The best part about this is if we can learn to listen to what our body and our anger is trying to tell us, I believe that actually goes further to bringing us closer to what we want and the life that is ours to live than any other spiritual, financial, or personal growth program out there. Like, oh, my life isn't working and this and that. Oh, it's got to be if I just figure out how to get my finances together, if I go to this meditation retreat, or if I get this therapy. And those are all true, and that is all helpful. But as men, there's just something fundamental about being able to say, yeah, I stand on my own ground, and when I get shook, I know how to handle it. Right? It's really no more complicated than that. So just quickly introduce myself. It's a little bit about my background and so on, but my coming to this is really through being my own first client, in the sense that I was, I'm 43. I was in my 30s, kind of stuck, loops of inner criticism, starting projects, never really finishing them, serial relationships and so on, and really learning to become more capable with my own emotional set and my very hot way of running through the world, to be able to make choices that are in line with my soul and what my path is asking of me. I'm also a father and a husband, and I love to garden and throw pots, and I used to fly planes, but not so much anymore. So we're going to dive into this class here. We're going to be done in, I would say, with the class portion of this, 20-25 minutes. So we're going to talk about what is anger. We're going to talk about why we think we get angry, right? What we think we're angry about. And we're going to talk about what happens when we get angry, like what is actually happening, how we can take that apart. Then what I promise, how to handle anger in those 3 simple steps. And then that sort of connection to anxiety. Okay. Okay. So what is anger? I love this definition from Gabriel Roth. Anger is an integrity-producing response to the invasion of your personal boundaries, meaning anger wakes you up to say, hey, somebody just stepped on your turf in a way that's not okay, or somebody just reached through in a way that is not okay. Wake up and be able to respond to that, because you're being invaded type deal, right? And I love this integrity-producing, meaning it actually is not calling our worst out of us, it's calling our best out of us, right? As men especially, like, we know how to deal with something that is a threat. But we often think we're angry because what's happening in the present. And a lot of times, sometimes this is true, but sometimes, especially when we're getting angry repeatedly about the same things, we're getting angry because of what happened in the past. And when that's true, it's frustrating, because we feel like no matter how we deal with the present, we can't really solve it in the present in a weird way. And so we actually run the risk of damaging relationships and perpetuating those self-limiting beliefs that I talked about, that we're not in charge of our lives, because we're directing our anger outward. And so we're never able to solve the underlying problem. So here's this little mini workshop, which is the sort of meat of this. So what happens when we get angry, right? When we get angry, we got to slow it way down, okay? So first we have an event, right? Something happens. Then we feel a sensation, right? We're usually not able to catch this so much. Then we notice we feel angry, right? There's a rush of heat, feel tight. So we identify, where's this threat coming from? Why am I angry? Who am I angry at? And then we take an action, we respond. And this last two is the area where we get into trouble. Okay. So we're gonna unpack that section now. And there's a quote here that maybe some of you know from Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So we just laid out this 5-step process of what happens when we get angry, but we're going to unpack these last two. So when we identify the threat, so we've had an event, something's happened, we feel the sensations, we feel angry, we're looking around, we're ready to come back. We got to pause, right? We got to simply pause. We have to introduce that pause, right? Peter Fabish calls it pause when agitated. We have to pause when agitated. We do have to assess the threat, right? Like, is this real? What's going on here? But here's the trick. Is this something that's more inside? Like, is this me? Am I getting triggered? Am I feeling defensive? Am I trying to defend my own turf? Am I upset about something from before? Like, or is this a legit threat coming in, right? And that's such a critical question. Like, what's going on? Am I taking this personally, or is this legit? And sometimes it can be both together. But first, I'm just going to explain how we handle both. So now we're into the response category. So if the threat's legit, right? Like if somebody is doing something to a person you care about, or is coming in with, a physical attack in the most sort of overt example I could think of, the first thing we do is have to set a clear boundary, like, no, right? Like, and we're all capable of that as men. That warrior energy gets fired right up. No, right? Then after that boundary's been set, we can move away. We can make ourselves safe. And then we can circulate chi. We can do massage. We can do deep breathing. We can sort of yin, move the energy through our body and kind of heal the present, like come back to, okay, we're okay, right? When it's more us that's angry, and this is all about slowing this process down, we have to own it. Whether we say it out loud or not, we have to recognize, oh, this is me. There I am. I'm angry, right? And we have to take space. We have to go, okay, I need to take my anger out of the room, or I need to take this portion of the anger. Because like I said, sometimes both are happening at once. So like a legit threat is coming in, and I'm taking it personally, and I've become sort of captured by my my past, so to speak. In either case, we can do both at the same time. No to that, and whoa, hang on, I got to go deal with this, right? And so in this second thing, when we're going, okay, this part's me, we've taken ourselves out of the room. Now we have the opportunity to actually heal whatever this is, right? Because whatever this is probably not what is happening in this moment. It's not what's actually live happening. I mean, anybody ever get really triggered when your partner or your friend says something and it's like, I always get angry this way? It's not about what's actually happening. It's like somebody could look at you and say, hey, bro, like, why are you taking this so personally, right? And you almost don't even know. So we're going to talk about how we heal the past in this along this pathway. So what do I mean by circulate chi? So first, a quick definition, right? Because this is the key to it. There's a book by Bessel van der Kolk that's about trauma, and just the title alone is so helpful, right? The body keeps the score, right? The body is keeping track of what is happening to us moment to moment, and it stores it there, right? And so when we have this anger stuck in the body from when we were a kid, when our boundaries were sort of repeatedly punctured, and there was no adult to say, hey, back off from my son, right? Or right now, when somebody's coming in with something, the anger gets stuck. And so we've like the key to it is learn how to move it, right? And so for those boundaries that were broken when we were kids, we actually can heal it retroactively. We absolutely can. I'm going to talk about that. And for boundaries broken in the present, we can learn and become more capable of responding. And when we learn how to respond in the moment, we actually have it be that things that happen to us are less of a big deal because we become more capable to make ourselves safe, which is, and then we can, after we set those boundaries, we can self-soothe and prevent further trauma. And this is all about learning to become more aware of what's moving through our nervous system and what's our relationship to it. Like, in a weird way, as kids, we learn big emotion, danger, something's happened, and I can only be rescued. I can't actually take charge and navigate my course through the stormy waters. So just as the body, this is kind of the good news, just as the body remembers trauma, the body will remember when we take a stand for our healing by saying no to what shall not be allowed to enter. And again, this is where it's tricky, because am I saying no to what happened in the past, or am I saying no to what's happening now? And so we have to learn to become aware of our side. And so these are the steps. The first thing we do is we set that clear boundary. So we either take, I'm angry, I'm taking myself out of the room, or no, what you're doing is not okay. Or both at the same time. I'm a no to that, and I notice I'm really upset, and I need to take myself out of the room. Thank you, right? That clarity. We then need to actually do that, actually take space. So that's not okay. Okay, that the situation's done. Let me get out of the room. I just need to go and take myself and deal with what's become activated. Or I'm angry. I'm going to take myself out of the room, and now I'm going to actually take space to deal with what's become activated, and then circulate that chi to settle and restore balance to the body. It's so helpful a lot of times if you can do step 3, having done step 2, which is if you could do it in the bathroom or away from people, in the car, whatever it has to be, in the forest, whatever it is. It's better to do it alone, but there's times when we have to do this stuff on the fly. But for the purposes of teaching this, it's just helpful to envision ourselves, in a place where we have our own space to move. So in that situation where the threat is actually a memory of something that happened to us in the past, and we're so activated and we're so upset again, right? That first thing we're going to do is we're going to set that clear boundary and take responsibility. Okay, I'm angry. I'm angry, right? We're going to take space. We're going to walk away. We're going to leave the room. We're going to take our anger out of the room. And then I'm going to walk through this slowly. We're going to connect with that ouch, that primal violence. We walk out of the room. It's like, oh, why am I so angry, right? And you can almost feel your body getting revved up and built. And you can actually, so the anger is stuck in the body. And through martial arts, through dance, through breath work, through any number of what I'm calling yang, right? Yang circulations of energy, we're going to actually imagine the violation coming in, and we're going to use penetrating speech and our focus, our out breath, and quick angular movements to say, no, no. And I'm not going to do it because I'm wearing headphones. I'm sitting in a chair behind a desk, but like, you can move around the room. And this is actually something that I do a lot in my work. You actually reimagine yourself in that, what you don't even have to know what the situation was. You feel it in your body, and you're literally dredging it out and saying and putting it where it needs to be. It's in my body. No, get the fuck out, right? Like, no. I mean, and you could, I mean, just to no, whatever comes, like all kinds of language might come out, like, and what happens is, and as much as is needed, the body learns how to boundary, right? How to relearns how to boundary something that it couldn't boundary back then. You may have to do this, dozens of times. But if you do this, you are literally, in the same way that we heal trauma and we hear about people healing trauma with PTSD, you will over time slowly heal what happened to you that has you taking things so personally, slowly over time by piecemeal, because you're literally wiring your neural pathways to know, oh, we can make ourselves safe. And that little critter, that little boy part of you says, yeah, I have a big boy and he takes care of me because his arms work and his voice works. And I didn't have that back then. Let's take a moment. I'm just like fired up by that. Um, and just to remind us though, that pause when agitated, which comes before all this, is so important because again, when we just did that thing that we were just doing, you're not doing that with someone outside of you. This is all just for whatever is still sort of left over. And we don't have to run that through, we don't have to blast our trauma through our partner and our work and the guy who, rear-ended us or whoever it is. So in those moments where it's really clear that there is at least some portion of the threat is outside of us, right? We need to very quickly set a boundary. Like, this is unacceptable. Like, you don't get to just roll over my kid, or you don't just get to come into my house, or you don't just get to yell at my partner or my wife or my kids, or do this to me in this way. That, and you don't always have to know why it's unacceptable. You just say, no, I'm a no to that. I don't know why I'm a no to that. Like, no, right? Again, then we're going to do that second powerful step, which is take space, right? This is so important for men, is to learn how to be in self-care and to be able to just remove ourselves from the situation. And then we're actually going to do something different because we did that initial yang, setting that clear boundary with that no, in a way, now we don't have to do the retroactive thing. Now we can get a massage, we can give a self massage, we can slow things down, we can do some deep breathing, we can take our shoes off and walk in the grass, right? The body will learn every time we do this to surrender. That's actually okay. And weirdly, this makes us better and better equipped to set boundaries again in the present next time, because we don't re-traumatize ourselves and go through the world and going, that thing happened to me and that was really bad. It's like, I handled it. I handled it. And now I'm going to circulate. There's a way in which, as men, we think we're supposed to know how to deal with everything in the moment, like SWAT team or like SEAL Team 6, and recognize two things. Half the time we're angry about stuff that's not even happening, and there's a huge thing we need to do in terms of healing the past, which no one teaches us. And then when we actually do nail it in the moment and knock the threat down because it's legit, we have to take care of ourselves, and we have to slow our body back down. And that is a thing that's on us to do as well, so we don't carry it into the next, context. So that's a little mini workshop on anger. And just one last point on this, because this is hyper focus on anger. Something that I learned this week is anger and anxiety are actually deeply connected. They have the same physiological symptoms. So when we're really anxious or we're really angry, heart rate gets rapid, chest gets tight, our muscles may clench, we have rushes of heat up the back of the head and up the neck, right? We unconsciously, we're not aware of it in the moment, but we sense that we're not okay, that there's a loss of control in the situation, and that we're reminded of somatically what it felt like to be a little kid, right? It reminds us from this experience. And we start to create a feedback loop. And it's not gonna, the symptoms sort of feed on each other until someone intervenes. So on the left, something happens, you can start in either box, but let's say we start on the left. We feel angry and we don't know how to handle it. This creates sensation in the body, which tells the body, oh, I know this, and I'm feeling anxious because things aren't improving. This shortens our fuse, right? Like, actually, it's going to take less to set me off now. And we go back over to the left and we go around and around. And you add in inability to deal with difficult emotions. You add in tendency to ruminate and analyze and create stories. And that just creates this whole thing. And so in this place, again, we have to learn to pause. We have to learn to settle and notice, is what's required right now. Do I need to heal something in the past and really show up for myself and my body and let my nervous system know that it can be mobilized? Or do I need to really settle things down? And what I find is when anxiety gets involved, oftentimes we need to take space. And then we really need to circulate the chi in a powerful way. And it could take 15, 20, 30 minutes to get ourselves back to feeling And the idea is not to get to perfect, but the idea is to sort of get down the backside of the mountain. So we're coming back down to balance, and things will start to clear up from there. So before I move on, well, there's this quote from Gandhi, which I think is just so great, right? I've learned through bitter experience, the one, I God, I can't read it here, the one supreme lesson to conserve my anger. And as heat conserved is transmuted into energy, even so, our anger controlled can be transmuted into a power that can move the world. And I want nothing more for all of us on this call and for men in general to learn that we can be angry in service of what is sacred, in service of what is our values, in service of the wider world, and not just get stuck in our own nonsense. And so to that end, I'm relaunching my emotional flow mastery. I'm just going to say just a few words about this because I'm inviting you guys to join this 5-week men's group and masterclass where what we just talked about is anger, but this larger group is going to be anger, sadness, fear, anxiety, depression. We're going to the intention of this group is to, how do we actually learn to be someone who can just, as Rumi said, a guest house, be able to host and allow to move through us all that comes, right? And so this 5-week masterclass, if this is something where you long to reclaim your power in areas where you might have historically given it away, where actually you do from time to time feel held back by anger, fear, and anxiety, like they're actually sabotaging or getting in the way of your life, where understanding, feeling, and expressing emotions openly is not always a native activity, where it's actually more like, what am I feeling? Where you sense you have more to give the world, but you feel stuck maybe in loops of frustration and criticism and self-criticism. Sometimes you don't even know why, but you know you have more to give. It's a little bit intimidating maybe to be in a call with and be vulnerable in front of other men, but you can sense that that's a growth edge that you want to work in a safe, intentional container. And you would love to do something like this, but you're busy and you kind of just want someone else to handle it so you can show up and learn to integrate these new skills, right? And so in this program, we're going to learn how to identify, affirm, and express these emotions, and how to host them and have a way for them to move through, how to completely rewire our relationship to shame and guilt, because shame and guilt with men is kind of like stop zero. Before the first stop, we stop at like, well, I'm not even allowed to have this feeling, right? It's not even okay for me to have this feeling, so it's probably too much. So we don't even get to the exploration phase. And then once we do, we have to overcome this fear of these big emotions, but we can even use our familiarity with fear and anger as a doorway to greater power, presence, and authority in our leadership, because we recognize that our value grows when we increase our capacity to experience challenging emotions, because we become a leader that people can count on. We become a leader, a family member, a partner, an employee, a founder, a CEO, whatever it is, who can actually handle it when the big wave comes. And there's a real focus on using the body to master. This isn't going to be a thinking course. This is going to be like, how do we start at the ground and the earth and move on up? And lastly, I forget, this is all great, but we have to also learn how to successfully set effective boundaries with people. We need to know and become better at not having boundaries be this, gosh, I wish I was better at that type thing, but something that's just like, yeah, I can set boundaries. I set boundaries, and they're clear and they're not loaded with emotion. And just some things that some clients say, um, about working together, which I wanted to share. Um, Okay, so just a real quick, we're done here, and then I'm gonna go to questions. So this is just a 5-week group. There's gonna be 5 2-hour men's group calls. Like I said, laser focused on working with embodiment, breath work, and counsel, which is just the practice of sharing and hearing each other's stories, our successes, and actually getting to practice the work. I'm going to offer a similar thing like this, but like the way I gave a mini teaching on anger, there'll be a mini teaching on each of these different sort of categories of how to be with and host, uncomfortable emotions and how to work with that, with opportunity to discuss it. Of course, that group sharing and spot coaching, this is more of a webinar, so there's not really any of that, but typically in my groups, there's a lot more interaction and everybody is kind of offered reflection and from me and the group. Then there's a private group for us to all do homework in the private WhatsApp group, which I've found is like half the battle. And so I'm doing these coaching calls this week. And so here's the deal. If you're interested in doing this course, I'm going to offer you opportunity to lock in this rate by just booking a coaching call with me this week. I'm going to send out an email after this. It'll have my link. Book a coaching call. And this is really 60 minutes for you, right? Where we can dive in, like, where are you stuck in your emotion? Where are you stuck in feeling? Where are you, like, where's the blind spot? And I'm going to do my best to let you know what I think your biggest opportunity for growth is. And if that leads to you joining the course, then that's fine. And you'll get a special price break. But really, this is just for me to be in communication with men in the world and serve you. And then, so if you book that call this week, that's going to unlock this price, this $395 price. It's going to go live. I guess we're going to start promoting it. Today's the 20th, something like next week, like July 28th or something like that. So it's going to go out to the world at 550. Book a call with me. You get the free call and you unlock the special. It doesn't mean you have to sign up for it next week, but you'll have that in your back pocket. If we do a call, and the call doesn't have to be this week either. You could book the call this week. You've locked in the rate. Maybe the call's in mid-August. We have the call. You decide, I don't want to do the group. That's fine. You decide, I do want to do the group, and you sign up, September 1st, you're going to get that $395 rate. Everybody else is going to get it at $550. And so it's an incentive I really want to be in communication with as many of you as I can. And I want to be able to say, hey, I built this thing. It's for you. It's pretty cool. Who knows if you're a fit for it? But in the meantime, let's have a conversation and see how I can serve you. Right. So yeah, so that's the webinar. We just did that in 30 minutes. And I just wanted to stop and see if there's any questions about any of it, whether it's questions about the course or questions about the content that we just went through. Any questions from you guys? Hey, Peter.
Hey, Peter. Wow. That was really good stuff. I really got some good distinctions there. One of the things that came to me was, when you're talking about, I'm going to ask a question about the content you just presented. I'm also curious about the course, but the taking space part. Mm-hmm. But I've noticed myself, I mean, that whole distinction about, are you getting angry about something in the past or something that's happening now? That's gold to me, I think. But when taking the space, what I've noticed I can do is, I take the space and then I can either calm down or I can actually sit there and run the story of what's in the present that I think is making me angry and get angrier and angrier.
Totally.
And actually come out of the space actually more angry than when I left. And so I was just I was thinking, and you were talking about, how much it's stored in the body, the trauma research and writing that's been going on about all that. There seems like there's this distinction between that. There's this work that has to happen back and forth between the mind and body, because to me, I guess, if I can, I'm just running this by you and I want to hear your thoughts on it. If I can interrupt the story with, wait a minute, is there actually something from the past that's really hooking me here? Then that can give my body space to process it. So using my mind to actually stop my mind and then going to the body. I guess that's kind of what I'm processing right now.
So just to make sure I'm getting it, is it something like, you're almost saying like, what I know I do that sucks is I go and take space and then I just let the mind run, sort of problem solving and angry and excited, like a loop. But it's not all bad, because I when I'm doing good, I will use the mind to say, hey, you're not angry about what you think you're angry about, and then you're able to take action. Is that right?
Yeah, that's really close. Maybe it's right on, but I think yeah, because my mind will either what I'm doing. I'm not actually problem solving. What I'm doing is actually running the story of what I think has happened in the present and why it's so wrong and why there's this huge injustice about it and why I need to be angry and just getting angrier and angrier. But then using the mind to stop and make the distinction that you made in this webinar about, wait a minute, is this actually more about something that's happened in the past, and that can stop the processing of the injustice of what's happening now, and give me a chance to then go into calming and chi movement.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times, and this is where the pause piece is so important, and I got that from you. It's like, um it's actually, as long as we're physically safe, there's probably nothing we need to go into right now to, which you, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know. There's probably nothing that we have to go into right now. So we've taken space, and we're going, and I say go straight into the body, like go straight into the body with those. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll just go big breaths, throwing my hands down, or I'm not going to stand because the way I'm configured here, but just like, bounce on my knees, and then, and I maybe do some qigong and move the energy. But it's like, frankly, like I wonder about what circulating chi is. Half about actually circulating chi, and half about putting our attention somewhere other than our brain, right? Just like getting it. It's almost like, here, play with this for a minute, play with your body for a minute, and we'll talk about this in 5 minutes.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, and what you said, I'll say just one more thing and I'll stop. You said that, well, you know this already, Peter, and I know a certain amount maybe, but knowing and then actually being able to do this in the moment when my cerebral cortex has gone offline is two very different things. So at least I found that to be the case.
Well, and that's why, and I appreciate that, is when we are aware. The thing is, no one said, I didn't say, and no one, I don't think, ever says we have to figure out how to master this in one moment. But the cool thing is when we learn to go back in time and really like heal it, and when we learn to self-soothe, we actually get better over time. Like you probably have found over the past 5-10 years that you've gotten like way better at being able to be like, okay, this is me, right? And that's what's so annoying about anger, is it's like we're angry about the fact that we're angry too, because it's like, oh, it's just it's like, can I hold that? Can I heal that? Can I be okay with that? And so we're just building more and more and more of a nervous system that can say, sure, bring it on, bring it on. It's so nasty and so gnarly, and I have room.
Yeah, just learning that there's space, that there is actual capacity is a huge piece of it. It was for me, because I went through a lot of my life just not thinking I had space for most any emotion, really. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
I have two questions, and one of them is similar to the talking about space. But the first one is, there's a book mentioned, like The Body Remembers. Is that right?
Body Keeps the Score. Yeah.
Body Keeps Score. Who's that by?
Bessel van der Kolk, I think. He's a kind of a German name. Yes.
Okay. And thank you. And my other question, yeah, like taking space and actually releasing in your body, I think, or through your body, I think is it's, yeah, I guess it makes total sense, and I just have never done that before, just because I always try to do it mentally. But there are times when we can't take that space automatically, or we have to wait. We're in a situation where we can't do that. Is there ways to kind of mentally take space to create that with you in the situation until you can release it through your body, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and this happens all the time, you know. I mean, I'm getting to practice it a lot, being in a relationship, being a father. Like there's times when I'm really upset, and I'm not going to say that I always do a great job, but what I will say is, um, we have the ability. What we can do is, um, we might say to ourselves, okay, I'm angry. There's stuff here. There's stuff here. Um, and we might just, you know, I even do little self-soothings. Like I might even just go or rub my arm. But what we're doing is we're kind of saying, like, if we can remember it, almost like dividing our mind into two pieces, like, okay, there's this thing over here that's still happening, and then there's this other room that I'm saving for myself for later. And that's where we're warriors. That's where we're going, like, okay, like I have to still be in this situation while having a bunch of stuff, right? And that's really the practice. That's your capacity as a man to contact your freedom while being constricted. So one of the physical practices I'll do is what's called Wu Chi, or standing horse pose. And I'll literally stand, right, with my knees kind of bent, my arms like I'm hugging a tree for 7, 10, 12 minutes. And the practice is, here I am, I can't move, I'm in a lot of pain, and yet I still have the back of my spine. I still have the central channel of my energetic body. I still have my breath that I can slow, right? And so, yeah, I would say breathing, beginning to move slowly through the situation, and making that promise to yourself that you're gonna deal with this later, and is actually equally helpful to expand the nervous system's capacity to hold discomfort. Is that helpful?
It is. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah, Peter, I was thinking just as you were talking about that just now, the piece about the self-soothing, because like my sort of knee jerk reaction to that kind of thing is like, well, what's that? Like that's kind of unmanly to like be self-soothing. But then I think, you know, I've read this and it seems true just from my own experience for me that there is actually, so you said the body, Bessel van der Kolk says the body records it all. And so when I was a kid, and there wasn't comfort and there was boundary violations and there was all this stuff going on, there wasn't soothing. There wasn't soothing. And that kid still actually is in there. And that's the past coming out and freaking, you know, and causing me to get angry about things in the present, way overreact and take things personally, like you said. And so self-soothing, I'm actually being an adult by self-soothing and soothing a child. So like if I had a child, nobody would say it's wrong for me to soothe that child, you know, or an actual physical child. But then there's also like a psychological child inside of me still acting out. I guess that's what I'm wondering. What do you think of that?
100%. Like, we're never going to be rid of the tiny little boy, the scared, angry little boy in us. And it's such a confronting idea, because it's like, well, I want to be done with that. And it's like, the one of you that wants to be done with that is the one of you that can't handle your anger. So the one of you that can say, I have space for as long as this takes, right? Like, to be that father for yourself. Maybe you had, or maybe you didn't have, but the point is, it's the father you need right now. And 100%, we give ourselves that love and that space, and that, you know, he's trying to drive the bus, and we say, okay, sweetie, I know you want to drive the bus. I'm going to sit you over here, and Papa's going to drive. And with this hand, I'm going to soothe you, and I'm going to be here with you. And fake it till you make it. I mean, for sure. for all of us, for all of us. I'm not saying that I've made it or you haven't or anything. I mean, we're all, toes off the edge of the surfboard at these moments. Like, okay. Was that helpful? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
Yeah. Great. Well, feel free to interrupt me as I close here if there's any sort of burning last question. But you're going to get the recording and a schedule link if you want to book a time with me over the next month. Again, and that's not attached to the the EFM, the course. It's just the offer coming out of this webinar. And if you like the vibe that I'm putting out and you want to take another step with me, we can do that together. And there's really no pressure. It's just in service of your healing and your awakening. And I hope I can be of service, and I hope I can help give you a clue as to what's next. So I want to thank you each deeply for your presence today. I can feel, though, like, I don't know, there's a way in which we all know what we're dealing with because we're all men, and yeah. So I don't know who you are there with the beard. I'm vibing you though. What's your name? I move it around, but I can't see it.
Hi.
Hey, oh, Joe. It says Joe.
Joe.
Okay, cool.
Hi. Thank you for this. This is really good.
Awesome. You're welcome. Yeah. Thanks, guys, and you too on mute there. And so you'll get the email. Feel free to be in contact with me in any way if I can be of service. And yeah, I look forward to interacting with you guys more in the future. So thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. That was fantastic.
Awesome. You betcha. You are welcome, Peter.
Yeah, thanks so much, Peter. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Take good care, and we'll talk to you soon.
So yeah, see you guys.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.